Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lisa and you're watching Growing on Vancouver Average. Today's video, we are doing a backyard garden tour. Lots of stuff going on in the back garden, so let's take a peek. Starting off right behind me, this is my bulb perennial border. There's a whole bunch of different varieties of bulbs in here, and let's take a closer look. Right here we have some leopard's bane. This is one of my favorite spring blooming perennials. I called it a bulb, but it's more of a tuber, and I'm thinking I might do a little video more about this perennial later, a bit later in the season. I've got a bit to say about it, so stay tuned for that. It is a gorgeous spring blooming perennial. The flowers remind me of a cross between a daisy and a sunflower. Absolutely gorgeous, very vigorous perennial, and spreads quite easily. There we have the naughty guy. Here are some daylilies looking rather lush and plump. And I am going to spin around and show you that my garden is not always beautiful. Here we have a collection of materials that need to be dealt with. This is the remnants of my vegetable garden. I said in a recent video that we just expanded and redid the garden, and this is why. This is what the boards looked like after 9 years in the ground as a border for my vegetable garden. Fully rotten. These were never pressure treated. These were just regular pieces of wood from somewhere like Home Depot, I think. And here's another pile of them. So although 9 years is a great lifespan for untreated wood, eventually it did need to be replaced. Not everything lasts forever. This is the fig tree. Lots of baby figlets. Figlets here. And here. And more up here. And way over here. And here, we've got a ton of them. I have no idea how many the end result is going to be, but we're off to a fabulous start. I always called this the experimental flower bed because it's been a full-on experiment. I put all kinds of different seeds and plants in here, just hoping something would grow. Over time, it's gotten many different fertilizers, and finally things are growing. We've got such a different variety of stuff in here. I'm going to be calling this, I think, a cottage garden or a potage garden, something like that, this season. And this is the first year I've incorporated food into this ornamental border. This is a bell pepper plant. I did buy these at Walmart, and then I grew them in my house from tiny little seedlings to what they are now. Put some over here too. And I have planted vegetable seeds in this border. This is one crazy experiment. It might go terribly wrong, but it might go terribly right. So stay tuned to find out what this big growing experiment is going to do. So we're going to take a little look at this slope that I promised I would show earlier in this season, what it looks like now. This used to be an invasive bank of a shrub called cotton Easter that we removed last year. It was a massive project. I never want to do that again. Way too much work. But it is totally different now, and there's a lot of different ground covers on this slope. We have got the famous creeping phlox, and there is a lot of it growing between my boulders. These were all propagated or transplanted or broken off bits from my front garden, my front rock garden. I did not buy any of these. I will insert my how to divide creeping phlox video because it is certainly useful information. If you have creeping phlox, you can have a lot of creeping phlox. You could sell creeping phlox. You could do whatever you want with it. It is so easy to divide. Since I have it in so many colors, when I was creating this back border here, I wanted to mix and match my colors more than I have in other locations. So you can see I have this very pale, it's almost a lavender blue color here. And I mixed it with this, I believe it's called Candy Stripe, this variety. And then I have a more, this is a purple actually. Here's another little candy stripe poking out of the rock crevice. And some more creeping phlox in different areas here. Again, these were all ones that I got for free by breaking my plants into pieces when I was maintaining them. And you can do this in the fall, you can do this in the spring, it doesn't really matter. Summer is a little trickier with the water and the heat, but it is doable to get new plants at many times of the year. Here's a look at this border coming this way. Down here, these are all raspberry plants that I didn't plant any of ever. These came from our neighbor's plants. They are right on the other side of the fence, and they self-seeded quite a few years ago, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get rid of them because they were in the grass. I tried to, and then I thought, no, just embrace it. If it's here, it's meant to be, so I just built some rocks around them to protect them. And here are some succulents growing in my boulders. These were original when we bought the house. They were already here. And I'm surprised they survived the cotton Easter invasion because that plant was a beast. More of my creeping phlox that has not started blooming yet. A self-seeded strawberry plant with a lovely collection of weeds behind it. More creeping phlox propagations, transplants, divisions, whatever you want to call it. And a few more of these propagations. You could call this a crevice garden, I guess. Now we are looking at the upper portion of my slope. This is an area where I did have some propagations, but I also did purchase some of the plants. So I'll show you the ones that I actually bought. Here's a creeping phlox that isn't doing as well, but it is still alive, and I have full faith that it will become lush. It's just a newer transplant, so it's going to take time. This is I believe an alyssum. I can't remember for sure. I did buy it. Just starting to flower. I think this is a golden alyssum perennial. I can't remember, but I think so. Not the most beautiful right now, but that's okay. It will eventually become more lush, established, and look much more pretty. A creeping phlox propagation that has not bloomed. Here is a rock rose that I tried to propagate. I want to say it was like February or January of this year. And I don't know if it worked. I didn't follow any of the advice on YouTube. This is my own method. But even though it's slightly crispy, I think it's alive because look right here. This is green. We've had hot days, cold days, freezing days, and I'm pretty sure this thing is alive. It's not beautiful, but I'm about 90% sure it's still alive, so I'm not going to pull it out. We will check back on it in a few months, but I'm quite certain it survived. This is a plant I did purchase. I'm so excited about this plant. This is a winter lemon arnia, also known as sandwort. I have a white version of this all over my rock garden, but not the lemon color, and it is so beautiful. Could not resist this. So I put one in the back and one in my rock garden, and the white version spreads like crazy. So I'm hoping this one will too. Here is another version of my perennial alyssum that is blooming. This is a golden alyssum. And it is side by side some lovely thistle weeds that I need to pull out. Not with my nude hands. That is not happening. And a bigger thistle right here. I've got work to do, it looks like. And at the top of the bank slope, we have some established ground covers. These were here even when the invasive cotton Easter was here. I planted these 2 or 3 years ago before I started YouTube. This is creeping phlox that is established. This is an arboriaceae that I planted this year. I love the white flowers. This is another arboriaceae that I did buy and plant this season. This combination I absolutely love. We have snow in summer. No, this is candy tuft with a creeping phlox and a saxifrage. I think it is a very striking combination right beside one of my boxwoods. For years, I've been struggling to keep the boxwoods alive. I don't know why. They have been struggling to grow for the last 9 years, probably longer than that, because these were original to when we bought this house, and they are probably 15 years old, even though they are tiny. The soil on this property was so infertile when I started gardening here. A lot of stuff wouldn't grow. A lot of stuff that did grow grew poorly, and a lot of things in general didn't grow. Some areas wouldn't even have weeds. It was literally like nothing would grow. When I saw that nothing was growing, and also the cotton Easter was taking up a lot of water and nutrients from my boxwoods, I decided to plant ground covers as a way of mulching them. And let me tell you, it did work. They started to grow once they were planted up with ground covers beside them. So there's a garden tip. If you have something that needs mulching, plant a ground cover beside it, because that might be a living mulch. Here is one of my 5 variety apple trees. And what I'm about to show you is what makes me super excited to have these apple trees. Other than the fruit, this is the #1 most favorite thing about combination fruit trees. You get 2 colors of flower on one tree. If you look closely, these are shades of pink. Now let's flip the camera over this direction, and you can see over here, these flowers are a pure white. With combination fruit trees, with some of them, you do get multiple colored blooms on the same tree, which is super exciting. My cherry tree doesn't do that, and the plum tree doesn't do that, but my apple trees both give me multiple colored blooms on the same tree. And here's a little update on the creeping phlox propagation transplants that I did last fall. I did a gravel pathway garden makeover last fall, and I promised I would show them. So I am going to show them to you. Some are doing better than others. Here is one little one that's blooming. This is a candy stripe. And a pink one beside it. A ton of weeds in here. I have not stayed up to date with my weeding of the garden. More creeping phlox. Some of them aren't blooming. They're alive, but they aren't all blooming, and that's okay. Some creeping thyme. This is an arboriaceae transplant from the other side under my blueberry bush. I had a huge one that I ripped apart and put over here in little bits. Lots of little creeping phlox around here, and again, not all of them are flowering. I do not necessarily expect propagated, divided, or transplanted plants to flower the first year that they are divided and replanted, but if they do, it's a bonus, and if they don't, that's okay. Here is one of my blueberry bushes along my pathway in full bloom. Lots and lots of blossoms here on this blueberry bush. Hopefully it has a good season. Last year, although the blueberries flowered so-so with our weird weather, we got very few. It was not a good growing season for blueberries last year, so hopefully this is a little better in 2023. And here is another garden experiment that I'm conducting. This is a vegetable, and I am attempting to grow it outside of my vegetable garden. This is the location I planted Cinderella's pumpkin. Coming up my gravel pathway, I have a few more garden experiments to show you. Here's an update on my nectarine tree. Nothing going on here, but right in front of it, we have some very exciting developments. These are baby zucchini plants that my garden supervisor has not discovered. If you are unfamiliar with why my garden supervisor might be excited about zucchini plants, I will link a video showing his love for squash, zucchini, and melons somewhere in the description box. This is the first time I have ever grown vegetables of any kind outside of containers or my actual vegetable garden box. And this is one big fat experiment, but I've been inspired by many YouTubers, including Food Forest Permaculture, Sustainable Holly, and many others, to try growing things in untraditional places in the garden. So that means growing food in ornamental spaces. Comment section if you've ever grown food in places where you pretty much have ornamental plants or flowers and don't usually grow food. I'm curious to know how many people do this, if this is common or if this isn't such a common practice in the garden. So let me know down below your thoughts on mixing food and ornamental flowers. Thank you so much for watching. Wishing you some nice sunny planting weather, and we will see you very soon in another video. Have a good night.